And we are back with another great episode, Real Talk with JT. And guys, I have someone real special. I mean, every week I get someone special, but this time I get somebody all the way from Canada. Yes, indeed, guys, they selling real estate as well in Canada. Okay,
Yes,
just
we
in
sure do.
case if you didn't know. And look, if you're looking to create a great team, a little bit unique team, not like the standard real estate team, and sell, a little bit over 1,300 homes a year. Well, you're gonna be glad you're gonna tune into this one because I have Darren from Calgary, right?
That's right, sir. Yeah,
Calgary, Canada.
that's right.
Did you guys learn on how to play hockey finally, or still practicing, still learning
We're
it,
still working on that one,
still
right?
working on that one?
It's a new sport for us, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm not the greatest hockey player. My kids play, and as you know, in the NHL, there's just a huge percentage of us Canadians showing you guys how to do it. And but I'm not. I wouldn't put that as one of the notches on my on my
What
on my proof of success being
on your
hockey.
resume?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, one of the greatest, right? Wayne Gretzky, he was Canadian, believe it or not, right?
Of course, you have to believe it. Come on, man. Yeah. He's up closer to you though. Yeah, not close to me. Yeah.
So good, man. So Darren, besides selling shitload of real estate with the team and really giving so much value to the agents to kind of think outside the box and taking their life and their business to the next level, because I know you also coach, just like I do. Who is Darren, man? Like, who are you at your core?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a deep question. That's one. I mean, if surface level, before I got into real estate, I was a mechanical engineer. That was like that. That sets I start with that because a bit of the foundation for how I go about things is very analytical. It's very matter of fact, and I've had to learn this like extroverted, salesman marketing front. That was not what I had in my initial upbringing. So I've slowly got out of my shell over time. And this business forces that out of you, or else you're probably not going to stay in it, right? So that is the root of a lot of what drives me still. Whether I'm coaching the agents, it comes from that perspective. Whether I'm coaching my kids and trying to get them up and running in this world, comes from, again, that detailed analytics that I continue to push. I love real estate, though. I got into real estate as a property investor first. So I flipped the idea on my folks that I was going to leave engineering, and that's not a good thing to do when you're from where I am. If you're going to leave that behind, so I flipped the script and I jumped into real estate from an investment standpoint with my current business partner of 18 years now. We've been together for 18 years, which is wild because I've seen so many partnerships come and go constantly. And I coach people to get through better partnerships too, because that's not easy, as you know. But yeah, so I'm an investor at my core. Probably most of my net worth is always from investing, not commission sales, even though we have thrown up some pretty big numbers and continue to do it. I love the control of real estate investing, right? I love the long-term nature of it. And I love the tangibility of it. So, I mean, that's a big part of it. I have 3 kids, so I'm busy, right? Busy with the 3 kids, 15, 8-year-old and a 9-year-old. And they're doing a lot of stuff. And my wife's a busy, very smart gal. She's way smarter than I and very important in her job. So yeah, we just try to hang on, man.
So good, man. And so there's a lot, which you unpack, right? And I want to start with like the personality. And we always used to ask, right? Like, what is the perfect personality for a salesperson, right? And it was like the outgoing person and little driven and also a little amiable, so you're likable by people. And like, what is the worst personality? It's like, it's the analytical type, right? It's the guy who's gonna try to like figure everything out before even get on the phone and start dialing, right? And there's definitely a lot of friction, right? Like having that personality. But I think over the years, and believe it or not, I'm a little analytical as well myself. Not an engineer, okay, anything of that sort. Definitely don't have the degree. But actually, a lot of the like super successful, CEOs, they are analytical. They all like super detailed and very strategic, and they love structures and systems, right? So you said you were an engineer. What type of engineer were you, Darren? And
It
how long
was
did you
it
do it
was
for?
mechanical.
Mechanical. Okay.
So a lot of mechanical engineers are funny when you whether you know this or not within the big corporations, mechanical engineers roll a lot into project management. A lot of the heavy lifting done by the project managers that make these things happen are oftentimes mechanical engineer background. I don't know why that is, but it's the ones that can build the Gantt charts. It's the one that can see from start to end, and they're not as much on the tools every day, right? They're not the ones in the calculations. So I don't know if that's what drew me to it, or that's always been a part of who I am,
Mhm.
is being able to build that roadmap and just, as you know, systematically get through it, brick by brick type of thing. So
That's interesting. And how did you run into real estate investments? Like, did you know someone who was investing in real estate? Like, how did that entice you?
yeah, I gotta get lucky maybe. So I played varsity volleyball. So I had some scholarships at school and I was reasonably intelligent. So the combination of being somewhat okay academically with some sports, guess what? The universities give you a little more money, right? You get a little more to be there. So my amazing parents had saved up like 20K to give to me for school, and that would have paid for 4 years of tuition, but we didn't need it because I just had enough scholarships. So in my fourth year, I said, well, I was with my girlfriend at the time. I said, let's buy a house instead of just spending rent. And I just did it. We just bought a house in university and I put a basement suite in it. And I don't know if I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad at that point. I'm not sure what I had done, but I was into the game and I was on a shoestring budget. And if they never paid rent, I would have been screwed. But you just figure it out, right? You don't know the outcome, but you just figure it out. Um, and then I met somebody though. Then I met somebody while I was serving part time, while going through school and doing my university volleyball. Um, this guy would come into the restaurant I was serving at all the time. It was really interesting, and he was like you, man, super passionate. And you would see him at a table, and him and his part, whoever he was talking to, were locked in, like eye to eye, insane. You could not pull these people apart. And I was like, eventually, I'm like, dude, what do you do? He's meeting somebody new all the time. And it was always, I'm a real estate investor. These are joint venture partners. And we're talking about real estate together. And I was just like, whoa, this is so cool. And he convinced me to buy he gave me a mini bit of coaching to buy my second home while I was still in school. And, we refinanced a little bit, purchased the next one. And here I am in school and had 4 doors already with my girlfriend at the time, with like zero room for error, but we just figured it out. And that was in 2003 and 4. So that was kind of what got me hooked. And then I knew, I was like, I'm into this. I'm good. Let's build a portfolio.
Now, just I know probably there's some viewers on this call. They probably saying, yeah, but it's like over 20 years ago. It was so cheap to buy then. It's probably a lot easier to invest as well. Now, with the pricing and everything and the interest rates, there's really no deals. I can't invest now. I miss the train. I miss the bus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the season of life that I was at was I had no extra dollars. Like there was no extra. I had no credit yet. I had nothing. I was just like I didn't even have a first time job really. So I mean, every season or every cycle has a different variety of it. Sure, was pricing lower? Yes, but rent was lower. Did you earn more then? No way. Like a starting salary for an engineer was not even 50K, where that might be 100 now.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's relative, but you're right. Mortgage rules have tightened. They're different in Canada than they are for you. But and
My
there's a
God,
way to
you
make this
guys
work.
in Canada, you guys screaming. Oh my God, you went from 1.5% to like 7.5%. And you're really punishing the foreign buyers. I didn't tell you I'll be closing in a condo in Canada, in Mississauga, pre-construction.
Oh yeah.
And they told me, your wife, she's Canadian, but she doesn't live in Canada, so we'll consider as a foreigner as well, and we'll charge you 15% extra
Yeah.
from the purchase price, like on top of it, right?
Totally. I mean, our governments half idiots, right? As every government tends to be. So they're going down this path. I'm not in support, and yeah, they're doing some silly things, trying to paint the entire nation with one brush. And yet,
Hmm.
where I live, we have none of the same issues as Toronto. None. Like our affordability is $250,000 less on average. Yet my market gets punished with these broad strokes policies, as you
Yeah.
would imagine. And the US does the same thing, right? So
Yeah, it's like a day and night. I mean, we look in some single family homes around Toronto, 1.5 million, like a decent house, not even like a mansion. You know what I mean? For $1 million, you buy like a two-bedroom, one-bath cabin, and it's not even in Toronto, Toronto. It's in the suburbs, so it's just the pricing in Canada, guys. I really admire it. It's just incredible. I don't think the demand's really going anywhere. You know?
yeah, I mean the net migration to Canada is wild. There's a ton, just like in the US, but we're very friendly from an immigration standpoint. And it spills into Toronto first,
Hmm.
Vancouver second, and then now Calgary's on the map because our affordability is so incredible. So a lot of people are landing and then coming across, and we're seeing our biggest net migration into our province than we've ever had. And if you follow Alberta at all, we're oil. We're like Houston, right?
Mm.
We follow the cycles of ups and downs, and we've had some huge booms over the years. But the migration boom right now is hard to keep up with. Our
Mm.
demand is through the roof.
Yeah. And there's just so much space to grow into as well, right? You guys
Yeah.
have so much land around. So I don't think you're gonna have the problem with running out of space like we have in New York City.
No, not
That's
at all. Yeah.
that's for sure. But I know you said 3 kids, right? I know you coach, you do your investments, you're running the team, you're really helping Real to grow it in Canada as well. Like you have a big impact on the company growth over there as well, which a lot of agents are super grateful for. But how do you manage your time? Because we all have 24 hours a day. We're not
Sure.
getting more. There's no difference, right? Like, how do you stretch it?
Yeah, man, it just requires incredible intention, right? Back when you and I met years ago in the Tom Ferry days, one of the first things my coaches did is like force me into a calendar, force me into a schedule, force me into, putting in the intention. And dude, ever since those years, even though I'm 4 years from being out of Tom Ferry now, maybe five, I'm relentless on my execution, on the creation of what's most important and putting it into the calendar, but then also following it through with getting done what's supposed to be done. Sundays are my predefined, weekly scheduling day. And now I'm 9 years into this. So it takes me minutes to complete my schedule for the week because I know exactly what are the most important things for my world. So if that's the case, that those hit the calendar, everything else gets pushed aside. But it does take training, right? It does take time to commit, slow down. I remember the early years of doing this, John. I told my wife it was 7:30 on a Sunday night. For an hour and a half, it would take me to build my weekly calendar because I had to refigure out constantly what's most important, where does it go, who should I get in there, what should I do, which projects am I going to move on. And then now it's 5 minutes on Sunday mornings and it's done because it's after that many years, you know exactly what should be there. Um, a lot of people attempt calendaring though, you know that, and they fail. They fail. They
Yeah,
say the
yeah.
whirlwind of the real estate day. I can't follow this, and it's excuses. It's they have to just take more control on it. And then I think the second one is have enough integrity with yourself, right? If I'm going to spend 90 minutes on a Sunday to plan out the week, give yourself the integrity to complete the things you're supposed to be doing and don't just constantly let yourself off the hook, right? and then you allow that meeting to show up at 11 a.m. on a Monday, which should never be there, right? That should be at your time on a scheduling block that's allowable for meetings, but not in the middle of a session that you're doing this, or a content creation,
Making calls in the morning, right? Like
right? Like
always, you hear. I always hear agents like, "Oh, I have showings in the morning, man, and I have a home inspection and appraisal at 9 a.m." I'm like, couldn't you schedule it for the afternoon? I mean,
100%. It is silly what people allow in, and I think the problem is much deeper than just calendaring. It's just truly understanding what's most important,
Mm,
believing in it, and then doing it long enough to see the results, like you
mm,
and I know, right? It's hard for a lot of people to kind of get that consistency and that habit long enough to see a result before they
mm.
bounce to something else. Um,
Do you also see like a lot of people they over commit to things without really like thinking about it deeply, and when they have to put in the effort they realize like, oh my god, this is so much effort, and then
oh
they
yeah,
just drop everything off, yeah, and they don't do nothing.
I use the word capacity and willingness a lot right now, right? Because you throw this big idea, like you said, John, together. I'm going to do these things, and I always say, okay, that sounds great, but let's reverse engineer it again, right? Let's. Do you have the capacity in your day to complete this consistently, right? Willingness is one thing, but do you have the capacity to? If you're willing, great, but you don't have the capacity, maybe you just ask yourself what needs to change so that I can do that, right? Like just your simple analogy about morning phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just shifting that so that it's in the afternoon, but that's a physical change that you have to put in the calendar. Then you have to execute on it. Then you have to do it for a week. And then you realize, oh, wow, the world didn't stop because I made my phone calls in the morning, right? It's that willingness, that capacity. And I challenge people a lot when I'm coaching them on that.
Yeah, and I think you said the integrity, with within yourself as well, because I always say, if you make that promise to yourself that you're gonna wake up in the morning and do role play and jump on the phone, and you don't follow through, it's really that knowing, that you didn't follow through. It's gonna be that much harder to follow through the next time,
Mm-hmm.
and that much harder the next time and the next time and the next time, and it's almost like you just build this vision about yourself that you really you lack the integrity, and you don't follow through on things, and then you can't really commit to things anyways, because deep inside you know that you don't follow through on that.
Totally. You're either building the positive series of habits or the negative. And then us as salespeople with no bosses will convince ourselves that we did enough that day. And we'll convince our spouse or we'll convince our business partner. But it's bullshit, right? Because we sold ourselves that was good enough because we're so used to letting ourselves down.
Nobody wants to be the bad guy, guys. You got to have a good justification, right?
Of
Like,
course. I
I
used to do
totally
something
worked too
pretty
hard
funny. Let
yesterday.
me grab something off my
Yeah,
desk to
yeah,
show you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but this was back from my Tom Ferry days, and this is pretty funny. So I don't know if you can see that. That's my face. You see that? So this is my old company, Redline Real Estate, when we were an independent. And I would give this to my agents, and they each had 15 of these. And we had reverse engineered it down to every phone call conversation they had was worth $45 based on our average sale price with my team split baked in. And it was either move this to the pile over here, which is banking it, or it was leave it where it is and picture it burning. Right. So like that accountability was like bank it or burn it.
Mm.
And it's again that thing that, when you talk about calls that we used back in the day, and I still keep it for a reminder, which is a lot of fun.
That's such a great idea. I think the value went up probably. We did the numbers with our team, was like 127 per
Yeah.
conversation.
This was like 2014. So this is probably, if I were running a 50-50 sales team now, it would be at least probably be $130 now in our
Yeah,
market. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Nice inflation. Inflation is good, guys.
Yeah.
And this is so good, because I think many times as salespeople, right? We the results is really delayed
Oh
by
yeah.
three, 6, months, even sometimes even years, right? So you could be, putting effort into something and don't really see the return immediately. But when you keep it in mind, when you break it down into what is actually the cost of the conversations and appointments and showings and offers, and then you see like, oh my God, I'm getting paid like $2,500 every
Per
time I
appointment.
sit down with
Yeah.
somebody, and you go with that mindset into scheduling the appointments,
Hmm.
it changes everything. Like game over, you know.
That's right. If that doesn't change it for you, you're probably in the wrong business, right? Because then you're not being driven by that like unlimited cap that we have in this real
Hmm.
estate business, right?
Hmm.
We can be making more than CEOs of Fortune 500, or we could be broke, right?
Yeah.
So,
Now I just want to talk about the scheduling a little bit more, because I know that that's so crucial, right? I mean, Tom says, "Show me your schedule, and I will tell you your future," and it is so true. Now, how do you keep yourself organized with all the priorities? Do you use any softwares or just a simple notebook? What is like the ideal schedule for you in
you
your
know
time
that
blocks?
so I run myself kind of on a 90-day year now. So I set like a lighthouse goal for the
Hmm.
year, right? And but I really like to chunk it down to this concept of the 90-day year. And it's not quarterly business planning. It's different. It's like setting the fact that the year ends at 90 days. Because us as salespeople, we need a bit of healthy urgency, right? As you know, business
Hmm.
planning is like this thing down in the future, and it's assumption based on assumption based on an assumption. And I hated that about, the annual business planning. So someone had provided me the 90-day year concept, and I fell in love with it. So I use it's called the self journal. And the self journal is the notepad that I can put my main goals, the action items, the little steps. And it's a great one for anybody looking for something to build in that habit. And it does run off of this idea of a 12-week cycle, right? Like a 12-week with the 13th week being the rest week, like almost
Hmm.
like the celebratory week. But because us as salespeople, we don't give ourselves enough room to lay off, right? When you do a 90-day year, every week counts. You can literally see every week, and you can methodically go back to my analysis days, see what every week is required to get you to the goal, which is way better than looking out 52 weeks and building out a bunch of assumptions. So I use this the Remarkable, I don't know, this is like an e notebook,
Hmm.
but I just bring the PDF copy of the self journal into here, and I use it almost daily, not daily, but like, I mean, it also has a moment of gratitude, and what are your topics, and you write down your three targets for the day right below your goals. And it's really quickly, you'll be like, oh, that has nothing to do with the goal. Why the hell am I doing that? And then you can quickly cross and change, rather than people that just start bowing through their days thinking they're on the path, but then they realize they're so far veered from the action steps because they got derailed because they watched a YouTube
Hmm.
video. Now they're chasing another rabbit, right? Um, this thing allows you to be like, oh, let me stay on course. Let me course correct. Oh, that doesn't need to be there. Or wait, there's nothing again in my day showing towards that one goal. Let me rethink about this, because I'm wasting a week. You know what I mean?
So how many times do you like open that thing up throughout the day?
Just once.
Just
So
once.
that's
Okay.
in the morning. You chicken scratch it. I just use Outlook
Hmm.
for my calendar, and it's set there. If the day comes and changes, as you know, it always does. You just I do a daily wrap up as I'm transitioning back to being father guy, not realtor guy. And I go back through what the hell came to me this today that I need to change some of my time blocks, because there's going to be changes
Hmm.
constantly. So I readjust it, drag and drop it simply, and make the movements. But at the end of every day, so I use it as a catch-all, but I also as a make sure I catch all the things I should be doing
Hmm.
also. So it's kind of that daily wrap up. It works as a transition moment before I can be a good dad and not be the dad that's frazzled thinking about what he
Hmm.
hasn't figured out.
Hmm.
And most of the times it's in my driveway when my kids run into the house after I pick them up, and I need like 5 minutes of daddy time, and they know it. Like they know the car's running, they run in, start doing their own thing, and I just decompress so that I don't become a jerk, and I'm present. So
Leave. I love that. I definitely gonna pick this one. Leave everything by the door in the garage.
yeah, man, I have a bad habit in the past of just it just never shutting off. In this business, we all do it, and I was sick of who I was becoming. I did not enjoy that the people
Mhm.
closest to me felt that about me because I couldn't get my shit together and shut off and figure out, put some boundaries. And that was it. Those moments are not great when you
Mhm.
think, wow, I'm not a good spouse, or I'm not a good dad, or why the hell did that take priority when it shouldn't have?
And I think couple things with that, right? I think it is so important to recharge the batteries and take a break a little. So when you go back to work, now you're actually excited and you bringing 100% of your capacity to the table. And same way, right? Like, there's a great book. It's about stoicism.
Mhm. Yep.
It's like doing just that one thing, but giving it all,
Yeah.
right? So like if you're working. If you eat with a family, you are present with the family. Like my wife, we married for 14 years. She's Canadian, right? Toronto. She used to tell me this since day one, like, be present, be present. And I, from the beginning, I never got it. I was like, what do you mean being present? I'm like, I'm here with you, you know what I mean? But I'm on the phone, I'm always working on different things, coming different ideas. And a few years ago, it really clicked. I was like, I got it. Now I know what she meant, right? So of course, behind every great man is even greater woman, right? Like we gotta admit that. But
Yeah.
I want to say I want to say something, which is so important. And you said it with the schedule. You said you simply will drag people. I mean, the things that block somewhere else, right? And I think what most people do, if they go back to the scheduled review, they will simply delete that thing,
Yeah.
right? But when you're dragging it somewhere else, you would quickly realize, like, oh my God, I don't have another time to do this. I might as well just do it. I'm not going to drag it somewhere else, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, so think back to the integrity that you have with yourself. And if you go back to that Sunday session that you spent time on building, and it found its way into the calendar for a reason, right? So if you believe yourself, then it should probably stay there, right? So you'll find a way to drag it somewhere else. Or sometimes, well, shit's out of balance all the time. So that means something else came up that's important that you allowed into your calendar. What you had in your calendar that didn't get done gets done later that night, which means it's a little later. Well, so what? That's just what it has to be, because we are in a cyclical business that we
Mhm.
can't predict fully. And there is going to be the ups and downs. And that's totally cool because, well, we have that uncapped ability to earn, which is pretty sweet. The other thing about it is on that weekly wrap up on that next Sunday, when I go back to review the week, the first thing I do is what didn't get done in the week that still needs to be there, and ask you that. Sometimes you're going to be completely blown out. You'll be like, why was that in the calendar?
Mhm.
I spent the time and I thought it there, but it doesn't need to be there. Then you might be able to delete it. Because if you re-ask yourself the same question a week later and it's still there and you didn't do it, it might not have, or maybe it shouldn't have been there in the first
Mhm.
place, right? You were giving it more weight than it deserved. So I give myself like one grace on that. I let it roll to the next week and I put it back in. But then if it doesn't get done again, it usually moves off, because that means I just missed the mark in the planning. I realize that's not for me. That is not needed for now. That's not driving me towards my goals. And then it goes out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Now, I want to switch gears a little. Coaching, what it means for you, coaching, really.
Oh man, well, coaching changed everything for me. Right. 2013, when I got into the Tom Ferry group, I had come off of a good year. And in that case, I was a solo agent, doing 40 deals a year. And then that upcoming year, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. The horseshoe had fallen out. right? I didn't have systems. I didn't have plans. I was just a kid in my mid-20s and got lucky enough to do enough business to make a couple $100,000. It was pretty sweet. But then it became not so sweet. So I started to seek help. And those days when I found my coach, I spent 4 years with him. It was Bill Pipes. And it changed everything. The complete outlook on my entire business, my person, the people I met, guys like you. It reshaped the entire direction of my real estate career. And so when I built out Redline and built out my team, and then built out my ultra service brokerage, and now building out the Real Broker crew, it's from that servant's place to know how much that impacted my business, that I want to pay it forward because I know how much it's needed. Everybody who's done anything meaningful has had people in their corner, right? It's not a solo show.
Yeah, there's a saying like I'm a self-made man,
Right.
right? I made it by myself. But
Yeah.
do you honestly made it by yourself? Like we need other people. We need mentors. We need smarter people than us, right?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, so the Redline agents that I've always coached, I've always led from a proactive leadership. I'm their business coach, I'm their mentor, but just very proactive in front of them and trying to help them grow. But when I have clients, I mean, that's a big responsibility,
Hmm.
right? You want to make an impact, and you, part of it's accountability, part of it's experience, part of it's proximity to others, because you and I, we don't know
Hmm.
everything. But the agents that see growth under coaching are committing themselves to take action week after week. As you know, there's lots of people in the coaching circuits that don't, and they just almost pay a coach to have to say they pay a coach, but their income never changes. And it is, it's all to do with execution. And that's what I intend to instill in the people I have an honor to teach and coach.
Now, I know you work with a lot of agents on your team and also, off of your team. What do you feel it is the biggest challenge for the agents in today's market?
I mean, there's a saying about like treating your business like a business. And this business is so cyclical, right? You're going through some season going on there, and we're going through something different over
Hmm.
here in Calgary. And we tend to rise with the tide and fall when it goes, right? Like we just go with the market. And the biggest thing I try to get to is like find an agent who isn't just, let's get them not doing that. Let's let them guide the ship and not just go ups and the downs. And the cool thing in this industry is that if you can create that true intentional business that can weather the ups and downs, you build market share every single time, right? When things
Hmm.
fall away, but you've got a systematic business, right? You have an agent. Sorry, we held an event the other week, and this concept of the flywheel, which is like a
Hmm.
self-perpetuating machine, right? That is what we try to build in this business. Something that will continue to chug, not just because the market's chugging,
Hmm.
right? And that difference is the biggest thing, because agents will feel I'm busy, 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 busy because the market's busy. Well, no shit, you're busy. If you're not busy, then you're not talking to anybody. And then you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. There's no listings. Well, it's because you're not going to chase listings. Independent of the market shifts, is your business moving ahead, right? And that's a it's a key thing that I try to help people with.
And I know you touched on it a little bit, right? Like consistency, but most importantly, having the right habits and the right rituals for
Yeah,
the agents to work on their scale, like constantly, relentlessly, reaching out to people and giving them some type of value which is relevant to them, right? Like,
sure.
what are some of the key habits you see the agents should be really paying attention to and really getting after it?
Well, I mean, it kind of comes back to what you brought up before about the calendar, right? And figuring out what is the most important thing for us in this business. And for anybody who listen to any of your stuff, I'm sure most
Hmm.
coaches, it's going to come back to talking to people, right? And just I think about creating real estate conversations one of two ways. You're either actively doing it or you're passively creating it. And depending on who you are and where you are in the business, a lot of team leaders created an engine that creates conversations that come to them, i.e., from ads and spend and whatever it is. So you're dealing with these passive inbound, which is great. And then you go down that path. But a lot of newer agents, they don't have the budgets for that. They haven't created any inbound yet. So they have to spend all their energy on actively creating business, making the dials, calling, door knocking around their
Mhm.
listings, physically reaching out to their spheres. So that front end of the funnel is active or passive, and that'll shift throughout your career. But that's the cool thing. I'm either developing a business that creates active conversations, or they're passively coming to me, and that's how I have them. That's pretty simple.
Mhm.
Active or passive. And then how, right? Active or passive. How do I dial it up? And that's, if you can figure out that part of the funnel, the front end, the rest of the stuff in this business becomes a lot of fun, because then you're solving new problems, scale, hiring, how do I serve this many people? But none of that shit matters until you figured out how you're actively creating enough to match your goals, or you have passively coming in, like a YouTube guy or a YouTuber would be driving towards passive conversations. He's putting out videos, getting millions of views, and getting 3 leads per video. That's a strategy, but that might take 2 years to create, right?
Yeah.
Or so.
Now, with that said, right? Because I know a lot of the agents, which are in the business right now, they probably jump in the past 3 to 5 years, and we know the market for the 3 to 5 years was very different. It's definitely not the standard business, and they all think, hey, I'll be on TikTok, I'll do a few videos, and I'll make $1 million a year.
Right.
Like how realistic that is, or what are they missing?
I mean, there's a world for that, right? But if you think about back to your initial question about like the types of people that have been successful in this business, and
Hmm.
there's this like the whole disc profile of people, who's going to be incredibly impactful online amongst the clutter, amongst all of the variety of stuff being thrown at them, that could cut through that like a knife and intrigue somebody enough to call them, right? That is a certain personality, right? Somebody that has to love being on video, is okay to just be vulnerable, like willing to share anything and anything, right? Investing in media, learning all that stuff. As you're an agent thinking, I'm like, am I that person? Am I going to be that guy getting up every night, learning how to figure this out, loving on these new tools and editing? And there's some of us that love that stuff, which gets you going. And of course, those will get better.
Hmm.
You're not going to be scared to see yourself. You're going to just put it out there. But like, I don't know, what's the percentage of agents that would say that's not for me, right? And they're forced into a world of shoulds. I should do this, but it's never going to be their skill. It's not going to be something they're super comfortable with, but they crush database a different way, right? I have some of my top agents, $250,000 guys, $500,000 guys, that they don't need video. They don't need social media for it. They touch people in a different way, right? So, I'd say cautionarily go ahead.
Hmm.
If you believe that's like a skill set of yours, and you could see yourself doing it every day with no results for a while, go for it. But it's not for all.
Now, we see a big shift, right, going from a momentum market into a skill based market,
Mm,
where actually you need to know what you're talking about and asking the right questions to kind of figure it out. How can you help people and what type of value to give it to them, not just send them the property to search and
totally.
and praying they're going to call you. So what are you doing differently with your team to really get the right skill
Mm.
for the market?
We broke down. We br- so there's two things right now. Like a year ago or 2 years ago, the real estate conversation was coming to you. It was just easy, right?
Mm.
People everywhere were seeing things go up. So it's like you almost had, I think I shared this in another podcast. You could walk backwards into a Starbucks and end up in a real estate conversation, right? Like it was that easy because everybody, but now you have to drag this out of people, correct? Right? Like it's not everybody that wants to talk real estate anymore. Um, but here's the big thing most people should know: It's not that people don't want to talk real estate. Life continues to happen just as often as it did when the market was crazy. Life doesn't change. Kids are born, kids are graduating, people die, people are married, people at the same pace, if not more, because there's more people in all of our countries,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just you need to be the one to drag that conversation out rather than it coming down like a piece of rain. So, yeah, I mean, right now it becomes about volume of effort, right? Volume of effort, more attempts till you have an appropriate conversation. And that just sucks for some because they're like, I don't want to try harder. Well, they have to, right? Or your messaging has to change a little bit to speak to the pain points and the problems because there wasn't problems before. You know what I mean? Now it is landing where they are and the conversation they're having in their head, not outbound. And that just takes a little more thought and then intention. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And me personally, I love this market because it really helped us to elevate our game and bring more value to the table and way more resources. So like, how do you see, you've been in business for like 15, 20 years as well, right?
Sure.
Like, how do you see the business being different now than 20 years ago? Like, yeah, we have Facebook, Zillow, online presence, like all that stuff which we didn't have before. We used to use yellow pages. So do you feel like it is easier now to sell real estate because you have so many different resources and tools you can use at your disposal, or is it harder because of those tools?
So it's easy for us to say this new world of social and digital is freaking overwhelming. How do I learn it all? Right. And the moment people do that, they stop. They don't take action. It's never been easier to sell real estate. Like it's never been easier to get in front of more people, to get your message across with no budgets than ever. Like the power that's wielded that we all know in our hands to just use is insane. When I started this business, we were still doing handwritten contracts. We're still meeting late at night. I would go off. Sorry, honey, I got to go do a multiple offer, and it's like 2007, and the amount of time it took to connect with people was insane. Email was a big thing back then. Well, email's really winning right now, as you know. When you have a good niche group of targeted
Yeah,
people
yeah,
and you
yeah.
speak value, that email is just as good. But now you have everything else. But people are scared, right? They see others, the imposter syndromes we all have, and then we think, well, they said it, so I can't say it, or that person's video, or that person's hair is better, so I can't do it, right? So I think that's the harder part, is realizing that this stuff is a gift to us. It's not a hindrance. It's a gift.
So I was in a training with Ed Stulak early on today on the teammate sitting,
Yep.
and he did a video, the poses when people are just standing and then not moving.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And it is back. Like,
I
people
love that
did it
one.
like months ago, and now people start doing it again, and it's working again. So we're gonna shoot that one as well. It looks pretty cool
For
actually.
the ability for us to connect with others that we never connected with before, and show them our resume or our proof of success, and show them like our portfolio, which is like our feed, because you create that. Like that's you create the damn feed, right? And then if you're reaching out to new people, of maybe people of influence or people in your community, you're giving them a proof of success. You couldn't do that in the past. It was like, who is this guy calling me? Right? Where's your background? I don't know you, but now you do, right? Like, and I go to your profile, I'm like, I got you. I figured you out pretty
Mm.
quick. And like, he's worth talking to. So the agents that build that brand up, and it becomes a nice way to cut through. And most people's online connections have very little barrier, right? People with influence respond. People of high value respond because that social media connection is so easy. It's so less difficult than a phone call or even an in-person meeting that you would ask for. But a quick dialogue online you can do that with anybody. It's pretty cool for those that.
That's how we scheduled this podcast, by the way. It was
Yeah.
on Instagram. It was a quick message on Instagram. So it is working, guys.
Yeah.
So I know you said social is big, right? And I always ask, the agents, and I say, everybody in your database, like all your past clients and COIs and all the people you're working with, are they following you, and are you following them on social? Because what we say, what really makes money in real estate is the relentless follow-up and nurture.
Yeah.
And what the social media, it gives you the ability to
Hmm.
really follow up and nurture that relationship without really putting much effort into it, because they watching your stuff.
Yeah.
They're on your channel, right? So as long
It's
as
your
you're putting
show.
something what's relevant, it's your show.
Yeah. That's one thing I coach a lot in like my foundation level courses is just like database used to be from a point of like we connected somewhere offline. And then I get your cell phone, I get your address, I get your email, I put it in your database. So it's going that direction. Well, now you start with a follower, and now your job is to reverse back towards email, back to cell phones, back to addresses. But it's a two-way street now. You can be building your database from both places, and God knows how easy it is to connect with new people. So it is like, I don't know if there's like a diagram with arrows going both ways. It's like make sure you're using both ways, and then yeah, everybody should be in your online TV show, right? We
Yeah,
are all a show now.
yeah. I also really like Ed. He said something. It kind of changed my perspective on things when I post. He said when you're making the post, this is almost like your photo album. So when you're putting it out, you're really putting it out for yourself and your family,
Mhm.
years from now to go back and really look at your channel and be like, hey,
Sure.
this is what Darren is about. Oh my God, he was all these cool places and meeting with all these cool people, right? So it's really nice for you to also put something what's really relevant to you, right? And keep it authentic that way as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's one thing with follow up that again, I try to build everything into simple frameworks as much as I can. And like follow up is one of those like airy fairy words that a lot of people just been like, hey, you have to follow up more, right? But it's never really taught, right? And it's not taught, so people don't really know the expectations unless you're in coaching and you've been given the stats about how many phone calls or how many interactions before. But it's like, what is the follow up? And I think of it as a couple things. Like the first part is um, the first stage is like obtaining. You need to obtain some way to connect one on one,
Hmm.
right? So if you host an open house, right, and you're going to meet somebody, the first thing is obtain the record, right? That's step one. But then you eventually need to qualify them. So stage two is qualify. Then you go and convert, right? So I'm learning if they're going to be in my long-term database or they're going to become an active client. And then after that, they become closed, right? So like follow up can be just broken down into 4 stages. Sometime your lead gen already has you obtaining the number, meaning online lead gen, they filled out the form, you can connect with them, right? You've obtained it. Now you got to qualify. Are they going to buy now or are they going to buy later, right? They're always buying. It's just now or later, right?
Hmm.
And then it's converting them to either my long-term database file, which is forever and a day, right? Or it's to active business right now. And then if it's active business, you just roll them right into what is your process to close them out. That's follow up, right? It's those 4 phases. And an agent could really just dial in each phase just to make sure, do I need a little work on my obtaining, right? I suck at converting with my scripts, like you said, at an
Hmm.
open house or at the door. I'm just never getting contact records. Well, we know that's probably their issue, right? If you're qualifying, well, again, what is the conversation to get her to better get to the appointment? Converting, right? And then that process to funnel long term or active business. And just so simplicity of that to say, okay, it doesn't have to be more difficult. It's kind of like, do I generate leads actively or passively? Well, it's one of the two, right? That makes lead generation come down to 2 simple things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, 100%. Again, I think, it's really the engineer talking now, right? You can see like step 1, step 2, step 3, like this is the structure. And I also know like a lot of people, they jump into this industry and they say, "Hey, we want to be independent. We kind of want to fly by our pants and don't really have a schedule and don't have a boss or anything." But then they quickly realize and be like, we need a schedule. We need a structure. We need certain systems in place, right? So how on your team, I know you have 75 agents on Redline right now, right? And about a little bit over 250 are part of Real. And the 75 agents you guys are going to do on track like 1,500 homes this year, right? So that's a sizable production. It's about 20 deals per agent, which is freaking amazing. Even though your price point is probably like, what is it, $15.50 or something like that, right? So you definitely got to do numbers. But like, how important are systems and structure in your team? And what are some of the systems you guys use, which you feel like it makes you different and makes you stand out from the competition?
Here's a good question. Here's a good lesson I'll give you a lesson inside of answering this question. So when we were an independent brokerage before we transitioned to Real, a big part of our value proposition was a built-in concierge. And that concierge and marketing team work together to be the agent's easy button. So we use a program called Basecamp, and we would take an input form for every listing, and then in our listing concierge would walk through a sequence of events to list and load, order the photos, talk to the clients, set up the marketing brochures, and the whole workflow would be removed from the agents.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome. So the agents could go focus on the client and the client experience and the real estating, which is like set the right price. And it was meant to just give our agents a leg up. They had more
Mm-hmm.
time per day per client because the service was done very much like a team, but we weren't a team. And then when we transitioned to Real, we gave agents an option. They said, why don't you save $250 a month, which is what you used to pay at us at Redline? Let's go to Real. Let's give you an option that would have no monthly fees, right? That's an amazing part of our model. I wanted to give them that, but give them the Redline value. But I said, let's remove the listing concierge from that fee structure. You'll load your own listings, right? You'll self-actuate the marketing. And guess what happened, right? So the 30 agents that kept the legacy package and that kept the support for just continue to crush, right? The agents that went and said, you know what, stopped using the simple systems, the Basecamp, the simple checklist that we do this through this and we do it for you. Their production stopped because they were saving pennies on the dollar, $250 a month. And then a lot of them clawed back to say, I want back in because I saw my business tank. So it's a good lesson on a simple set of checklists, whether it's a local administrator that can do some of the stuff for you that's not income producing. Keep that in the budget to serve you better to go and hit the high profile things on your day, like talking to new people, not filling out contracts and loading in your MLS. And so we use Basecamp. We use like Google Forms for the input. The Basecamp is just it's just a version of online checklists, and that's just, and then the marketing team gets tagged into that, and they do a lot of the stuff as an easy button for the agents, so that we don't. Those that love Canva, go play on Canva and play with that, but we try to take a lot of that off their plate.
Yeah. And I mean that really makes sense, right? You want to keep the agents in the games which they make the most, right? The highest and best use of their time, and that's really face to face with clients or on the phone and showing places and listing homes. That's
Well,
where
here's
they make
another
really the
example.
money.
Let me share this. Part of it was we wanted to go all in on the proof of success, as we all should. Good market, bad market. Always go all in on your proof of success. So when we would sell a home, when we had an independent brokerage, our admin team knew every time the home sold, right? The agents didn't even have to tell us because it was flagged in the MLS under our brokerage. So with that, it actioned a bunch of stuff, i.e. sending out the testimonial right upon going firm. When the testimonial got in, we would whip it over to the marketing team. We would use and create graphics. We would put it on our our proof of success board. All that was done automatically. So guess what? Our reviews were like going through the roof constantly. The moment agents had to self-actualize and do it themselves or tell us that their home sold, they just didn't go through the motions. They didn't create that integrity in their business and those systems, and all of that fell down. So we were no longer getting as many reviews per day as we used to because agents were not putting that into their day, right? When it was done for them, it happened more, and they had it. When they had to do it and they didn't plan it in, it fell away again. And that just showed agents were like, well, where's my review? Oh, you never sent it to us. Oh, I never sent it to the client. because the agent would have to
Mm.
self-actualize, and they didn't build that new into their plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that that is so important, right? In order for you to do anything consistently, it has to become your ritual. And if you're sending a review, once in a blue, it's going to be very easy to skip the mine. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And most people don't want to. Most agents, they're not really as detailed as
totally.
they should be. That's the other issue. I know. It's wow. It's we almost at the end. We got like few minutes to go. That's unbelievable. You was so freaking good. I definitely got to bring you back on. Now, what do you feel like is your superpower, man?
Oh, what it is now, I don't know if it's the same as when I started. But I said something to my agents today. This is our final in-person meeting, because the summer, we know it's really hard to corral agents to get them to do anything. So let alone
Especially in
in-person
Canada,
meetings.
you guys in summer finally the snow comes down, right? You guys can go
Go get a
outside and warm
tan
up a
finally,
little and get a
right?
tan.
Yeah. but but I said there's two types of people out there, not just realtors, but there's two types of people, period. And one is the agents that know, and or the people that know, and the other people that don't know yet. And what I mean by that is knowing why the hell they're doing this at all. Period. Right down to the granular question that I asked of, like, why are you doing this every day? And until I had that clearly defined with something tangible, like us in real estate, we can just spin our wheels and we can try this, try that, get distracted by this. But I made a decision back when I was 36. I bought a multi-million dollar home, and I said I did not want to have a mortgage payment by the time I turned 40 ever again. It was a huge feat. I had no idea how I was going to do it. It was about $830,000 worth of mortgage that I was going to have to pay off. But my wife and I said, we don't want a mortgage payment in our 40s ever again. So we did it, and we made a plan, and that became the intention. So literally, like you said, back to the calendaring, wrapping this thing all up. I knew why I was putting those things in the calendar. I knew my intention on everything I put in there. It was driven through something so specific that I'm really grateful I took the time to figure out, right? And and that became kind of the guiding light that carried me 8 years, right? And it carries me to these days, right? Because I knew what that would do for me financially into the future, right? It was going to develop the entrepreneur that I wanted to become. I had to start with those little intentions. And I guess that's the Gantt chart in me. Looking long term, I have that
Mm.
ability to do that for a sustained amount of time, and just know that as long as I'm checking in and staying the course and making the baby steps, my business partner and I have always said we've never made any big leaps, but we've always made little inches constantly. And by the time, over time, that starts to pay off. So that's what I've shared as far as like a superpower. It's that relentless pursuit to move forward and not get distracted by the shit. And I do hold myself in high integrity. I do not want to be the guy on a chin-up bar that said I was going to do 10 and I just get to 9 and I could do one more. I push myself that extra chin-up,
Mm.
right? That's just something that I know nobody else would know, but I would know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that is so important to have that integrity with yourself and follow through. If you say you're gonna make those phone calls, make those phone calls, even though you don't feel like making them. It doesn't matter how you feel sometimes, right? But
Yeah.
commitment is a commitment. It will never ever let you down. Anything else you would like to leave the viewers with, Darren, before I release you to the
Yeah,
world?
man. I love this stuff. I mean, I've been 18 years doing this is a long time. But honestly, I'm never more excited than I am now about this business. And that's the cool thing about real estate, right? Like, I can see the smile in your eyes, right? Like, it's cool that this business you can go through seasons and cycles, right? And I was telling my agents today, there was a season when I was trying to go through that goal that I was busting my ass, that I was out of balance, but that was okay because I knew a second season was coming, right? And it's okay to go through
Mm.
these spins, but as long as you're going to the upward trajectory that you're trying to get to, it's okay to be up and down and up and down, but as long as the trajectory isn't flat or declining, right? And that's one thing that, and it can happen in a short amount of time, man. Like, John, this June, 10 years ago, I had my first coaching call in real estate. Like, the first call I ever
It's
had being
unbelievable.
coached. 1 decade later, it feels like 3 lifetimes. But the amount of stuff that got done in those 10 years boggles my mind, and the person that I've become and evolved to,
Mm. Mm.
that's only a decade, right? And all of us need to know, like, there's a lot of power that we can wield and change in a pretty short amount of time, multiple times inside of a decade. That's pretty cool in this industry anyways, right? So maybe that's one thing to leave them with is take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, that is so good. Well, Darren, thank you so much for doing this and spending the time with us and the viewers. If you guys like this, you gotta give us some like, some thumbs, share with your loved ones, and comment, because we're gonna go back and we're gonna answer all those comments. So again, guys, it was so good to see you. Another great episode today with Darren from all the way from Calgary, Canada. And yes, they're selling a lot of real estate, guys. And
Hit me up anytime. We'd love to chat.
follow.
All right.
Peace out, guys. Bye.